So quickly run through some of the shortcuts that LayR provides in the user interface that perhaps aren't immediately obvious because you really only hear about them in the manual or discover them by experimentation. LayR makes a lot of use of all of the gestures: long press, double tap, swipe. So it's worth trying, long press on something and see what happens, and double tap on something and see what happens, and you'll find that very often something does happen that you might not have found otherwise. So if we go to a LayR editor, if we long press on a dial or a slider, we can call up the link assign panel, which gives us the ability to set link groups, assign MIDI controllers, or assign that parameter to the macro. If we long press on any of the sections in the LayR editor, sections being the oscillator, the filters, the mixer, the envelope, if we long press on the background of the sections, we get the clipboard. Now this is very useful to know. So if you can say copy the oscillator, then you can go to any other layer in any instrument, long press on the background and say paste that oscillator to that layer. The little button in the menu bar, the clipboard button, gives you the paste options as well. You can do it two ways. You can tap that, or you can long press. Long press gives you the copy option. Particularly useful for filters and envelopes. If you copy filter 1, you can then long press and paste to filter 2. If you're on an envelope, you can copy, say envelope 1, go to envelope 2, and paste to envelope 2. Where you see the green numbers underneath dials, you can tap on those to enter a number. So you might want 2 seconds to tap, so just type in 2. If you double tap on dials, it sets them to their default values. So it's mostly 0, but some of them are not. Double tap to set default, with a special exception, which is the tuning dial. The tuning dial has 2 parts. The outer ring is fine tuning, takes you up and down an octave, and the inner dial is coarse tuning, which takes you all the way up 5 octaves back down again, the whole 10 octave range. So if you move the tuning dial somewhere near where you want to be, say you want to go up 5 semitones, move it somewhere near 500 and then double tap it, it'll set it to those 5 semitones. So it moves it to the nearest tone, nearest 100 cents. And double tap again, so 2 double taps will take you back to the center. And the inner dial sets you to the nearest octave. Double tap again to go back to the center. That's the only dial with a special exception, because it seemed useful. Also worth mentioning, you can drag A and B, A towards B, as well in the oscillator. If you double tap on the background of the LayR editor, it will zoom in to where you tapped. That's actually much easier than trying to pinch zoom or find a space to pinch zoom, because there isn't much space, although you can do it. Once you've double tapped, you can move it around with one finger. This is more useful in the sort of audio unit version, which has the long thin strip. If you're in the LayR editor in the long thin strip, you can zoom in to fit the section that you're looking at. Also worth mentioning in the audio unit UI is if you tap on the buttons on the left hand side, it takes you to where where it says, so you've got oscillator, filter 1, filter 2, envelope, etc. But if you tap again, it takes you to other places in the same section. So multiple taps on the same button take you to various places. Useful locations. If you're in the LayR editor, you can swipe on the menu bar to change the layer. You don't actually have to tap the buttons. You just swipe on the name to change the layer. So that's all of the basic shortcuts that are available. There are some others which are available in settings, and you'll see in settings you'll find there's editor swipe to open close, which you can turn on or off. I like it on. And what that does is that gives you swipe gestures across the board, which are shortcuts for opening panels rather than tapping on buttons. So if you swipe down in the master strip, you open the load performance panel. You swipe up in the master strip, and you go to the save performance panel. Don't want to save that. And if you swipe up in the background of the instrument mixer, you'll get the arpeggiator. Swipe down in the arpeggiator to close it. Swipe along the top of an instrument strip to expand the layers. And if you've got the span view open, you can swipe along the top to close that. When the MIDI controller panel is overlaying the keyboard, you can swipe down on that to reveal the keyboard. And if you've got the MIDI mixer panel open above the keyboard, if you swipe up on it, you'll get the arpeggiator. Swiping down on things usually closes them. If you're in a LayR strip, you can swipe up on the strip to open the editor for the layer, swipe down on the background of the LayR editor to close it again. And the last one is the effects panel. You can close it by just swiping. So that's all the swipes, and they take a bit of care and sometimes a bit of practice, but it's worth getting to know them because it really does speed things up a lot when you're doing sort of big edit sessions. And then there are some others, shortcuts and features that are only available on iOS 11. This is the drag and drop features. You can hold down on any control in an instrument mixer, in an instrument strip, and start dragging. When it pops up slightly, you can see it starts dragging. Now, if you drag it to another instrument, it will, when you let go, it will position itself behind that instrument. You drag it in front, two drags here. So you can drag it, if you drag it right out into the open space, it'll push it onto the end. You can do the same thing for layers. You pick up layers, move them around within the strip, reorder them. You can also move a layer from one instrument to another, and it will copy it to the other instrument. If you're in an instrument that has a couple of layers and you want to create another, say you wanted to make an instrument out of this layer, if you drag the layer out into the background of the mixer, it'll create a new instrument. And if you copy an instrument, I keep calling out the volume assign because it's also a long press on the slider. So if I pick up an instrument and start dragging, if I drop it into an expanded instrument, it will copy the entire instrument either by replacing or appending to the current instrument. So there you are. That's now one instrument made out of two. That's it. That is all of the shortcuts. So there you go. Close this with a swipe. And that's the end of the video.